When King Charles had his head cut off in 1649, it marked the end of a revolution that was already a decade old. In the 1640s, England's world turned upside down. Printing presses churned out new, strange, and sometimes dangerous ideas. The laity preached to the clergy, the commons ruled the lords, and ultimately, subjects overthrew their sovereign. These turns of the wheel provoked fear and horror. One parliamentarian, a critic of the revolution, said, "Cromwell and his Ironsides," and I quote, "have cast all the mysteries and secrets of government before the vulgar, like pearls before swine." The hypocrisies and injustices of the old order had been laid bare for all to see. The way was clear for something new. I believe a similar revolution is brewing today. The political and technological balances of power are shifting, disempowering censors and empowering dissidents. The mysteries and secrets of government are indeed being cast before the vulgar, as our elites would say. These changes open the door to new possibilities, new opportunities, but also new risks. I want to talk about what this revolution means today. To do that, we first need to understand the regime that is now in its twilight, a regime we might call globalism. Politically, this regime advances the interests of a post-national elite over the interests of nations and citizens. In practice, this regime has come to depend more and more on narrative control and censorship. Eric Weinstein, whom we will hear from next, has coined a great term for this, the distributed idea suppression complex, or the DISC. The DISC is the very latest in censorship technology. It exists to crush dissent and suppress information that might go against the orthodoxies and dogmas of our time. The DISC is a very useful concept for understanding how this censorship operates in distributed fashion. We tend to think of censorship as a top-down phenomenon. It's the panopticon that communist China has built for its victims. It's the policeman who shows up at the door and arrests the ordinary citizen for his online posts, or even for his silent prayer. That is censorship in its most classic and blatant form. But the DISC operates in a way that at least appears bottom-up, spontaneous, uncoordinated. Its innovation lies in mobilizing hundreds of different institutions and censors, all with plausible deniability of coordination. It relies on armies of fact-checkers and experts, cadres of activists and lawyers, networks of universities, media outlets, and NGOs. Those who run afoul of the DISC are heaped with opprobrium, denounced as dangerous or backward, their employment and reputation threatened. Some are even cancelled, or to use Orwell's term, unpersoned. In many respects, this is a more powerful form of censorship than any regime that has come before. In the days of the Inquisition, the inquisitors were at least constrained by manpower and the supply of dry timber. Under the DISC, censorship comes dangerously close to a whole-of-society effort, ruthlessly effective, despite its seemingly loose coordination. Those who challenged the official narrative on, for example, the origins of the COVID pandemic or mass migration have felt the weight of this whole-of-society effort firsthand. There used to be one star chamber. Now there are as many as the stars in the sky. So the DISC is formidable. But cracks are appearing. Tremors are being felt underfoot. Brexit, the return of Donald Trump, the rise of populist movements across Europe and here in Britain. These events are signs of the times and of the passing of an age. These events are happening now in rapid succession because the tech that empowered the disc also empowers the rebels. The tech advantage is shifting from establishment to insurgent. We saw this in the 17th century too. It was the proliferation of unlicensed printing presses that disrobed the king's majesty and accelerated revolution. In the same way, the spread of technology today gives citizens new ways to discover and share information. Citizen journalists and open source networks are overwhelming censors and breaking the power of traditional media. Just look at the role this digital media played in the last US election. Joe Rogan perhaps counted for more than all cable and broadcast news combined. That's a revolution. New modes of communication also empower new masterless men. The 1640s produced the Levellers, who advocated popular sovereignty, democracy, and equality before the law. The power is in you, the people, preached the army chaplain William Dell. Keep it, part not with it. Today, the modern age produces armies of anonymous online posters advocating free speech and ridiculing the censors. Today's elites are scandalized by these digital eruptions, just like yesterday's elites were scandalized by the commoners who dared speak of their liberties. In 1648, a royalist expressed shock at the, and I quote, raw, ill-mannered young men who were speaking in Parliament. Some say similar things today about the young men staffing Elon's Doge. But such criticisms are falling on deaf ears. The disc's ability to bully and dictate terms is fading. If the Doge has its way, the censor's funding and political power will fade, in the US at least. We are then entering unknown lands, with paths in many directions, not all of them good. History tells us that one path could lead to anarchy, chaos, and violence. Yes, the freedom of the 1640s produced Levellers, but it also produced diggers and ranters who advocated primordial forms of communism and debauchery. It's up to us to ensure that freedom and civilization win the argument over anarchy and chaos. Yet another path, according to history, leads to tyranny. Not long after royal censorship was abolished in the 1640s, parliamentary censorship sprang up in its place. As the disc collapses, we must be vigilant against new forms of censorship and resist the ever-present temptation to do unto them what they have done unto us. Artificial intelligence, in particular, could, in the wrong hands, become the most powerful tool of censorship, tyranny, and dehumanization. Already we have seen how AI can be aligned for political correctness, whether it goes by the acronym CCP or DEI. So our task must be to build AI that avoids these futures, ennobling the human and embodying the very best of our Western inheritance, chiefly freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, Christianity, beauty, and excellence. And that hints at a third path, a future where new technology interacts with these old notions of liberty and religion to create a better world. The many good things we enjoy today are the byproducts of just this interplay. The physicist David Deutsch tells us that, and I quote, "What is now called the West grew around the values entailed by the quest for good explanations. Those values, freedom, Christian tolerance, curiosity, open, democratic debate, they are our ancient inheritance. They are also the keys to unlocking more scientific, technological, and political progress. They are our doorway to a better future." At Palantir, we are wholly focused on helping society walk through that door. We use AI to defend the West against its enemies and make Western governments more efficient. In the US, we are seeing government reforms that will change the lives of everyone in that country for the better. There is no reason we cannot do the same here in Britain and elsewhere across Europe. But we must want to change. We must embrace innovation, and to do that, we must pledge ourselves as the sworn enemies of the censorship that has dragged us down. Restoring our civilization and realizing this better future are not given. They depend, as they always have, on people, on us. The revolution of the 17th century produced its share of great men. Thinkers like Milton, whose defense of free speech still moves us today. Men of action like Cromwell, a crusader for Christ and liberty, whose conscience led him to refuse the crown and extend religious tolerance to an extent unknown in his day. And countless lesser-known heroes like General Monk, who negotiated a peaceful restoration after years of turbulence and then stepped back from power like Cincinnatus. The revolution of our time demands responsible citizens and exceptional leaders. I am certain the citizens we need are in this room today, and the exceptional leaders may be also. Persevere, and we may yet reach that paradise described by Milton centuries ago. I quote, "When complaints are freely heard, deeply considered, and speedily reformed, then is the utmost bound of civil liberty attained." The door to that future is now open, if we choose to enter. Thank you.